My name's Adam Riojas. I was convicted of murder in September of 1990. Was incarcerated in prison for nearly 14 years for a crime that I did not commit. I had a condo in Carlsbad. On December 8th, 1989, my birthday, I flew in because the night before it was the Sugar Ray and Leonard fight on December 7th. It was an HBO thing, or we bought the movie, the rights, watched it. A friend of a guy who had spent the night came to borrow a car. See, it wasn't clear whether he was picking up a car at a shop or on the side of the freeway. Didn't know, didn't care. Early in the morning, here's the keys, go. They take the van. He comes back by himself around 4-ish. Nothing of the unusual, leaves. I go out that night, it's my birthday. Next day, I go back to Hawaii. January 1st of 1990, I get arrested at the gym at gunpoint. Actually, we were driving to the gym and in the parking lot, surrounded by probably 10, 15 undercover cars. Put us all on the ground, didn't know what was happening, got taken to a jail. What was really kind of even a quagmire still is that I had a single police officer drive me to the jail, and I sat in the front seat with him. He says, bro, the record says, or the report says that you're just a suspect, but it says you're probably not the guy. And he says, sit in the front seat with me. He had this talk with me. He's like, bro, life changes in an instant. I said, man, I didn't do this. He says, you probably didn't. He says, but you're going to prison. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I didn't do this crime. He says, you don't understand this world. He says, don't worry, 10 years, you're out, everything will be okay. He says, you'll pick up your life. He goes, you don't look like the type of guy that'll give up. You pick up the pieces right where you left off. They read me my rights and stuff, and he told me it was murder. The attorney told me that it wasn't wise for me to speak, so I didn't. He says, I don't need you to talk. He says, you'll walk out. Because, up to that point, that offered me time served. They went from a year, take a year, and a year you only do like half time. Do like 6 months, and you're out. I wouldn't do that. And then it got to where it was time served, which they were working on. He says, you're going to get time served, don't worry about it. They were dropping it to like manslaughter or something. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I didn't do it, so I'm not taking a deal. I said, you're not going to ruin my life. I said, I have a life to live. I sell real estate. I didn't take it, and sure enough, I got sentenced to life in prison. In prison, 14 years for a crime I didn't do. If there's a hell, this is it.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee. We waiting on my main man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic, who ain't with us right now. He's in a meeting, but he'll be with us soon. I want to say what's up to Jeffrey. I want to say hello to everybody around the world. I want to say everybody who's definitely been to everybody who's been definitely supporting us. I want to say thank you. I want to say that, the stuff that y'all write and, all the likes that we are getting on the website, we do appreciate it. And, I want to say to everybody who's definitely in the fight all around the world, who's making sure that we all, are saying our piece and doing our piece to make sure that, our falsely accused get out, they get back to their families, they get back to their lives, and that justice is served instead of being unserved. You know what I'm saying? I just want to thank, just everybody on how, we've been coming together with these shows. A lot of people have been talking to me when they see me out, and they like, Cogee, I think you're doing a great job. I think all your guests are great. And it's always certain guests that they remember. And I always say to myself, whenever you can remember somebody, that's somebody that you see a reflection of yourself in that person. You think to yourself, man, I remember I was close to a situation like that. And wow, that's what could have happened to me. I think these shows are definitely eye openers to a lot of different people, so I just want to tell y'all, hey, keep cool out there. Watch yourself. Make sure that, you always know through the day you can kind of somewhat keep track of, what you do, where you've been, who you've been dealing with, you know what I'm saying? And just try to stay clear of trouble, because that's why we do this show. Trouble's easy to get in, as you heard with that clip, you know what I'm saying, where the police officer told, Adam, hey, you looking at some time. I mean, even though he didn't do it, but it's always, you found guilty before innocent, you know what I'm saying? So with that advice, I'm just giving, hey, watch yourself out there, watch your surroundings, and watch who you with. But in this first hour, we got Mr. Justin Brooks. He's the director of the California Innocence Project, and believe me, this is somebody that you really want to know. This is somebody that I want to know. I can't wait to do a great interview with him today, and this is somebody that I'm definitely thankful for, to be in the fight with this situation and all the great people that he's rising up around him, all the teachings that he's doing, and he's definitely, putting that out there at good work, and he's putting a lot of knowledge out there. And I want to make sure that I get him on here. I want to make sure I give him a good interview. I want y'all to love him like I love him, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, he's helped a lot of people that y'all might know. When y'all hear these names, he's helped a lot of people, get exonerated. And that's what it's about. So y'all stay locked in and stay tuned in. And when we come back in, we got Mr. Justin Brooks. And like I said, you don't want to miss this show. Get your pens and your paper. Go use the bathroom. Do whatever you got to do and get ready for a great show and get ready to learn. And like I said, this is a name I want y'all to remember, to tell your family members, tell everybody, go on the website, check him out, check out his great work, Mr. Justin Brooks. We'll be right back. Stay locked in and stay tuned in. And y'all know my motto. If you change the channel, you're a part of the problem. We'll be right back. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee, and we still waiting on my main man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic, who's in a meeting right now. He will be with us in a little while. But now, I want to say that I hope y'all ready for a great hour. This is going to be a great hour with a lot of information. And like I said, we got Mr. Justin Brooks, the director of the California Innocence Project, and he's doing a great job, a fabulous job. And he's going to tell us what we can do as a community to do a great job as well, or what we can do to just fall in place, or if we can sign petitions, or if we can, just give it likes, whatever we need to give likes, whatever we can do. And even for the people who feel like, no, I don't like coming out front, I just want to do something from the back, we'll definitely tell you how to do that too. So, we're going to bring my main man in, Mr. Justin Brooks. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great, thank you.
Justin, did I say anything on the break that, made sense to you, or something that, you want to talk about?
Well, no, I mean, you're absolutely right that people need to get involved in this issue. I know it's something people don't like to think about, because if innocent people are convicted, which they are,
that's right,
it means that you got to think that someday you might be convicted of a crime, even though you didn't do anything.
That's right.
Now, it's happening every day across this country.
That's right. You're right about that. Definitely. Now, what I want to do before we start this interview, I just want to throw a few things at you, and then you just tell me what you think when I ask you, these certain questions. Help people understand, how easy is it to just slip up into trouble?
Well, one thing, for example, the majority of the cases where we've exonerated people in California have involved bad identifications. So people literally just being misidentified when they weren't even at the crime scene, when they may have had an alibi and been somewhere else. And that's something we got to think about as a society, is how we try to fix that problem. There's a lot of reforms we can do to make identifications better, but most police departments in the United States have not switched to those reforms. And it is possible, as has happened in several of our cases, to be convicted on a single identification by a single witness, even when you have witnesses to say you were somewhere else at the time.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. What kind of people can help this cause?
Well, I think everybody being concerned and thinking about it and getting educated about it. Well, we've got a website, CaliforniaInnocenceProject.org. They can go on there and learn about the causes of wrongful convictions. That we have petitions for several inmates we're trying to get clemency from the governor for. And we actually had a 700-mile march last year where myself and two lawyers in my office walked from San Diego to Sacramento to bring attention to these cases.
Wow.
And you can go on innocencemarch.com and see those cases and sign petitioners asking Jerry Brown to give clemency to these 12 innocent Californians. There's lots of things people can do to get involved.
Okay, there it is. Now, another thing I want to do, if somebody wanted to get involved and they wanted to go to a website and they want to see what all they can do or where they fit in, what are some of the websites where people, can look up different stuff that y'all doing right now and get involved?
Well, we've got more than 60 innocence projects now in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So there are innocence projects that cover every jurisdiction. If they go to innocencenetwork.org, they can see for their state where there's a project. My project in California is CaliforniaInnocenceProject.org. But people volunteer to come in offices and read letters. I mean, we receive more than 2,000 letters a year from California inmates seeking our help. So we have volunteers who read through those letters, track down documents, track down evidence, so that we can put together the case we're going to need to get these people out of prison.
That's right. What don't people understand about when an innocent man or woman are put away and they falsely accused? What happens to their families?
I mean, that's very tragic in this country. You have no constitutional right to be housed even within your own state. So, for instance, in California, we're a huge state. You might be 9-10 hours from your loved ones. We have inmates in California that are housed in Mississippi. And so there's really no consideration in our criminal justice system about the families of inmates, the children, the wives, the parents. And we really shoot ourselves in the foot with that because it really destroys those families during the time of the incarceration, and then it's very hard to integrate back into these families. And we create kind of a cycle of crime and poverty and really exacerbate the situation by not considering these families. And the children of inmates, whatever we think about what people have done to end up in prison, their children have certainly done nothing. But we as society really don't think that through. And then when somebody's innocent in prison, it's just a tragedy all around. You have their own family suffering it. You have the victim who the right person isn't in prison. So ultimately, if the person's exonerated, we find the real perpetrator, as we have in several cases.
Right.
Now they have to go through the whole process again of the criminal justice system. So really no one wins when there's a wrongful conviction. And there's a lot of failures in our criminal justice system, which has led to us having the largest prison system in the world, the highest incarceration rate in the world, which is really surprising because we're a fairly wealthy country. And if you look at the other countries that have huge incarceration rates, they're really poor countries.
Right.
But in a wealthy country like the United States, we incarcerate a higher percentage of our population than any other country in the world. And that's shocking, those kinds of numbers.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there's a lot of things we need to do. And one of them, it starts with the fact that our criminal justice system has largely become a factory where 95% of cases are pled out, and most people never even get a trial.
Wow.
And that leads to tragic cases like one of our clients, Brian Banks, who's become a very well-known client because he ended up playing in the NFL for a short period of time after we exonerated him. But he pled guilty to rape and kidnapping, and the reason he did it was he was a 16-year-old kid who was facing 45 years in prison, and his lawyer said, if you take a plea, I might be able to get you probation. Well, you got a real problem in a system if it's set up with sentences that are so harsh that innocent people will plea because they don't want to run the risk of going to trial and losing.
Right.
And that's where we really got to stop and say, wow, if innocent people are pleading guilty, we got a broken criminal justice system.
You know what, Justin? But the thing about it is, how many of these attorneys push them, also lead them into convictions?
Yeah, I think everybody is culpable in it. I think the system has become so overwhelmed that there's no way they can do trials anymore for all these cases. And it's because for the last 3 decades, we've been increasing the penalty for drugs. We've been increasing mandatory minimums. We've had 3 strikes laws. We've had all these things that have filled our prisons and filled our courts.
Right.
So now we're at the point of, well, we can't do trials for all these guys, so we got to figure out a way to settle these cases quickly. And I think everyone is complicit in it. It's the prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges. It's the entire system.
Right.
It's really set up as a plea bargaining system more than as a trial system.
So it's almost like if you fighting a case right now and your attorney talk to you and say, hey, if you take this case right here, maybe we can break it down to probation, or maybe, we might can get it dismissed. But if you go ahead and just say this, this can happen. But if the person say, no, I didn't do that. No, I'm going for the full ride. It's almost like, oh, you're going to challenge us, so we're going to spank you, right?
That is exactly right. And it's very strange to people in other countries when I explain to them that if you go to trial and lose, you're guaranteed to get a greater sentence.
Right.
It's sort of a punishment for you going to trial.
Right.
Okay, you want a trial? Well, now we're going to give you a greater sentence.
You got that right.
It. And the problem with our innocence clients is, most of them, like Adam Riojas, who was in your lead-in story,
right?
They just refuse to take those deals.
Right.
And some of them could have taken deals and they would have been out of prison fairly quickly, but instead they're saying, I'm innocent, I'm not taking a deal.
But
and they end up getting huge prison sentences.
But could you tell people also, Justin, when you do go against everything that's inside of you and you didn't do it and you go ahead and take those deals and you might do short time and you might get out, but what happens to the rest of your life real quick?
Well, that's, and Brian Banks is a real story about that because he pled guilty to rape and kidnapping. And when he gets out, well, now he's a convicted sex offender. And now for the rest of his life, he's going to be a convicted sex offender. He's not going to be able to get a job. He's not going to be able to get housing. He's going to be on a register for the rest of his life. He's going to be on lifetime probation. All kinds of things happen to you. It's very difficult to get your life back together after prison.
Right.
And particularly if you've been in on a sex offense or an offense against a child or anything like that.
And those are some of the worst cases to go in on.
Yeah, and those are the worst cases to go to prison on, too. Prisoners are not very kind to convicted rapists or people who do crimes against children.
But a lot of them have seen, because a lot of cases that have, that came through my show right here, where they went in prison and they then got into fights. Some of them that got raped, some of them that got beat up, and then come to find out you had nothing to do with it at all when, the DNA comes back, but it's still too late. The damage is done. Yeah,
it's for some. I've been very lucky that most of my clients have thrived as we've got them out of prison, but, it takes a lot of support and a lot of years. One of my clients, Tim Atkins, was in prison 23 years. And for the past 8 years, we've been fighting to get him compensated and finally won in court this week.
Wow, congratulations.
Compensation. And, this guy went to prison when he was 17 and came out when he was 40. And the day he got out of prison, I gave him a cell phone, and I was calling him on the phone. And he wasn't answering it. And when I talked to him later, I said, why didn't you answer the phone? And he said, because music came out of it. I didn't know what that meant. And that's the kind of challenges these guys are up against.
Right.
23 years in prison, you're totally out of touch with society. And that reintegration, initially you're all excited and, it's an awesome thing. But then it starts sinking in all those years you lost and kind of how out of step you are with everything. And it's tough to get your life back together.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. Now, you know what, Justin? Everybody can hear you got a big heart. You love your job, but most of all, you love helping people with your job, and you love helping people to be able to help other people. What motivated you and started you, with the California Innocence Project?
Well, 20 years ago, I read a newspaper article about a 21-year-old girl who was on death row in Illinois, and the article said that she was sentenced to death on a plea bargain. And I could not understand how anyone could get the death penalty on a plea bargain, because as we were just talking about, plea bargains are all about, well, they'll give you a lesser sentence,
right,
and then you take the deal. Well, I'm thinking, what kind of deal was on the table where she got the death penalty and gave up her trial? So I went out and met with her in the prison, and she just had no idea what was happening. She'd been given a terrible lawyer who represented her, had no idea what he was doing, and she was on death row. She was facing execution. So I was teaching at a law school in Michigan, at Thomas Cooley Law School in Lansing, Michigan, and I went back and I told my law students the story. I said, there's this woman out on death row. She never got a trial. Who wants to help me out? And 4 kids raised their hand. And for the next 4 years, we fought to get her sentence reversed and get her off death row. And doing that case really inspired me that, first of all, there were all these tragic cases out there of innocent people sitting in prison. And secondly, that the best way to train lawyers is by having them do real work. So taking these law students and working with them on real cases. And so 15 years ago, I moved to California, started the California Innocence Project, and since then, that's what we've been doing. We have a team of law students and a team of lawyers, and they work hand in hand investigating cases and litigating them. And we're putting out a generation of good lawyers who really know how to do these cases and, think maybe this client's innocent when they go out to practice and don't just dismiss that. And that's a problem. It's a problem with prosecutors thinking everyone's guilty, and sometimes it's a problem with defense attorneys who think their own clients are guilty and don't necessarily do the investigation they should do.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to take a break for a minute, Justin, and we'll be right back. And when we come back in, I want you to talk about how somebody can get in line to be, one of the people that help find the discovery. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you went to your class and you talked to them. What can they do to be one of those type of people who investigate the cases? All right?
Sounds good.
All right, so we'll be right back. So everybody stay locked in. We got Mr. Justin Brooks, the director of the California Innocence Project, with us in the first hour, and he's definitely giving great information. I want y'all to get your pens and paper and get ready, and we'll be right back. Quick break, and we're right back in. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. This is our 22nd show, and we definitely getting our shows in. We got great guests coming through. We got great exonerees that are coming through, telling us what they went through, how they got out, how they moving on to a great life. But we also have great leaders that come through, like Mr. Justin Brooks, the director of the California Innocence Project, who's doing a great job. Thank you again, Justin.
My pleasure.
Justin, right before we went to break, I had asked you, how can somebody get on your discovery team? How can they, get in line to learn how to be a lawyer, where they do discoveries and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, there's law schools across the United States who have innocence projects that are working to investigate and get people out of prison, and it's a great way to become a lawyer. So I teach at California Western School of Law in San Diego, and my students get to work hand in hand in our project with getting people out of prison. In fact, tonight I'm heading out for my 3-day retreat where we start every school year. I spend 3 days with my law students, in a place out in the desert, and we train them how to, read autopsies, how to go through police reports. We train them how to do interviews with people in prison, how to talk to lawyers, and we train them to be investigators. And then when they come back to the law school in a few days, we give each one of them a stack of cases, and they'll spend the next year investigating those cases. And if they find strong evidence of innocence, we'll go to court, and we'll try to get those guys out. So it's a way of training, future lawyers at the same time as helping people get out of prison who are innocent. Right.
And you know what? You said you had some great lawyers that you're raising up right now. You know what? If you had to throw some names out there, I might be too many to name, but different classes of different cases that you've done, who would you like to celebrate today and tell them great job and, they on their way to being a great attorney?
Well, we've had, so many.
Right.
Probably 150 students have come through here and have worked to exonerate 12 different inmates. I mean, one I probably am celebrating this week is one of my former students, Wendy Cohen. She was the key person in getting Tim Atkins out of prison after 23 years. And she did what the LAPD and the LA District Attorney's Office failed to do, which is find this one key witness that lied and put our client in prison all those years. And Wendy just kept searching the streets of LA until she found her. And we got her back into court, and she explained to the judge what had happened that night, and he was exonerated. And that's the kind of thing my law students do. They go out and they do street work, and they go back and rip the case apart from the beginning and see, what mistakes were made. We had another client. He went to prison even though he was working at a factory at the time of a shooting in L.A. He was 50 miles away working at a factory. And we went and established definitively that he was at work when that shooting happened. It took a whole lot of investigation and documentation. But that's the crazy thing is people think they have an alibi, they can't get, convicted. But sometimes jurors just reject alibis. They just don't believe them. And sometimes the lawyers don't do a good enough job in putting them together and documenting them.
Right. Right.
And so that's what my students do. They put in hundreds, thousands of hours in going and tracking down the evidence that we need to prove that our clients are innocent. And a lot of times we actually solve the crimes while we're doing that. We find the actual culprits.
But you know what? But Justin, I'm sorry. Even when y'all do find the culprits and you said y'all solved the crime, why does it still take 2 or 3 years for the person to get free? That's what I don't understand. And a lot of people don't understand it. All our listeners around the world, you can break it down to us and let us know what, okay, if it's right there in black and white and we can see the person didn't do it. We got a person saying they did do it. They done signed a statement saying they done it. But the people, the exonerees still don't get out for 2 or 3 years. Why is that?
Yeah. And sometimes a lot longer than that.
Mm.
When I first started doing this work a lot of years ago, I used to think people didn't want to get sued, so they were all covering up things. But, the older I get, I realize it's as simple as nobody wants anybody coming into their job and telling them they screwed up. And when we show up in these small towns in California and we reopen a murder case, you'll have a prosecutor who spent years putting that person behind bars. You'll have the police who are all involved in it. And everybody's vested in that conviction, and they don't want us showing up and saying they did a bad job. It's not true across the board. We do have some great prosecutors out there. I mean, in San Diego, I'm very lucky to have a great relationship with the county DA here, and she'll sit down and review cases with me. And when we ask for evidence, they give it to us. And when we ask for DNA testing, they give it to us. But in most places I practice in California, the district attorneys fight us tooth and nail. They won't even tell us if the evidence is in the evidence room until we go to court and litigate that.
Oh, wow.
And then they won't give us DNA testing until we litigate that. And then once we get the result, they'll want to fight in court whether that truly proves innocence. And then sometimes when we win, they go back in and appeal it.
Mm.
So we've got a client named William Richards. We exonerated him 5 years ago, a tough-on-crime prosecutor in San Bernardino, so out in the desert here in California, declared him innocent 5 years ago, and he's still sitting in prison because they appealed it, and we've been fighting it in the appellate courts against them. So it's as simple as just people. I talk to prosecutors sometimes, and they'll say, "I know there are innocent people in prison, but not any of my cases."
Oh,
They're
wow.
so sure that they do it right, and you get that sometimes with police too.
Right.
Like they know other police officers make mistakes, but they don't.
Right.
And it's hard for them to get their head around. And I'm somewhat sympathetic about it because it does have to be hard sometimes on these prosecutors when we come in and prove definitively that they put a guy like Tim behind bars for 23 years.
Mm.
I mean, he went to prison when he was 17, and the day I walked him out, he was 40.
Mm.
And for them to have to sit there and think, you know what, that was my case, and that guy gave up most of his life as a result of the screw-ups that were done in that case. So I appreciate it, but still, you got to step up and
Right.
say, mistakes are made, and, come take a look, and I got an open-door policy, and defense attorneys and prosecutors have to work together on this to fix these mistakes.
You know what? When you said the defense attorney and prosecutors need to work together, I mean, wouldn't it make the justice system so much better if a prosecutor said, hey, you know what? I apologize. I done my best on that case. I felt I had all the evidence right there. I see that I was wrong. Hey, I'm glad he's free right now, free to go. Wouldn't that make it so much better and people could swallow it just a little bit better if they apologized and just said, I messed up. I mean, we human. We all human. And we know they doing their job to try to secure the streets for us as well. Like you said, we got to be a little sympathetic with the situation. But if they said that, could we swallow it a little different, a little easier?
Yeah, I always say to prosecutors when I have a meeting with them about a case I'm working on, I'm saying there's two ways to go with this. You can be a hero and say right now, hey, take a look at it. Let's work on this together. Let's make the right result happen. And that's what happened, for example, in the Brian Banks case in L.A. I mean, the district attorney investigated the case with us, agreed that he was innocent, and then joined us together in court and exonerated him. And now that DA's a hero, stepping up and fixing it.
Right.
Or you can be the guy that at the end of all this, you were the one who fought us every step of the way and made sure that this guy spends more years in prison for something he didn't do. And it's a choice. And it's, like I said, some DAs make the right choice and do the right thing, and some don't. And it's kind of, for the last 17 years, I've been training lawyers in Latin America, and I've started a lot of innocence projects down there. We've got projects in Argentina and Chile and Mexico and all over Latin America. And Latin America is moving more towards the American adversarial system. Mm-hmm. And I always tell these lawyers, like, we have a great system here, but don't pick up that part of our system where prosecutors and defense attorneys hate each other and can't talk and don't cooperate.
That's right.
Because these guys end up suffering as a result of that.
That's right.
And if you could sit at a table and just, like, work on this stuff together.
And not make it personal.
Yeah, not make it personal. Exactly.
Right.
It becomes very personal.
That's right.
And that's not the way the system should operate. It's about doing justice on both sides.
That's right. Where do you see the innocence movement in 20 years? 20 years from now?
Well, it's gone global. As I was just saying, we've started all these projects in Latin America. We actually run a project in Tijuana right from our project here in San Diego, and we've spread throughout Europe. We've got project in Israel, in France, in Italy. We've got projects now in Australia, New Zealand, England, Canada. So this has become a global movement. And I think it's gone beyond the idea of just getting people out of prison and training young lawyers. It's become really a movement of reform. We've seen a lot of changes in the system as a result of our work, because I think people have been shocked that there's that many innocent people. You know, if you look back when Reuben Hurricane Carter, got out of prison, there were still a lot of people who were cynical about that.
That's right.
Didn't really understand the case, but thought, well, maybe he is guilty.
Right.
And we've proven with these hundreds of DNA cases that this doesn't just happen once in a while. Like, this happens regularly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people in prison who are innocent. And I think we've changed people's minds. I think we're going to see the death penalty be destroyed as a result, because those jurors don't want to sentence someone to death if they might be wrong.
That's right.
We've seen reforms in the way identifications are done. We've seen reforms in the way confessions are obtained. Right. We now have all over the country places where the police are required to record confessions, because we've learned that a lot of innocent people sometimes confess.
Right.
And that's something the general public didn't used to accept at all. Mm-hmm. And I still think there's probably some listeners you have who don't believe it.
Right.
But the truth is, you keep somebody awake for 12 to 14 hours, you put 5 homicide detectives in a room with them, at a certain point they're willing to say anything just to get out of there.
And just burn them out.
Yeah. Or even sometimes they sign those confessions in anger. They're just kind of sitting there like, okay, whatever, just let me sign it. I don't even care anymore. And they think they're not going to get convicted.
Right.
Next thing you know, the police maybe drum up a jailhouse snitch. Maybe they get a bad identification, and now they'll have that and the confession, and you're going to get convicted.
Right, right.
So we've seen changes and reforms. I think that's going to continue to happen. I think, your show here is amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Getting the word out, that's part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, a show like this wouldn't have existed 10, 15 years ago.
Right. And, but I think you got to be born for this. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's something you just jump into. Like with the fight that you fighting right now, I'm fighting, Jeffrey's fighting, and the Exonerees, what they going through right now. It's almost like we born to do this. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't see no other way other than justice for the innocent. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing, too, on the Exonerees, because you get out of prison, you've given up a big chunk of your life, and I always have a talk with my clients saying, okay, there's 2 ways you can go now. You can either just go back to your regular life, and I'm happy to support you in that, and, I didn't work really hard to get you out of prison to put this obligation on you that now you got to work in this cause. But a lot of the Exonerees, they have a story that's so amazing, and they really can impact the system.
That's right.
Because it's one thing, me as a lawyer telling these stories, it's a much more powerful thing when you hear it firsthand from someone who's, lost a chunk of their life.
That's right. You're definitely right about that.
And a lot of my clients do believe that's why they were put on this earth, that, they went through all this suffering, but it was for a reason.
Right.
And that ultimately, they can do a lot of good by, telling their stories.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So what I want to do, Justin, we got to take another quick break. And when we come back from the break, I want you to answer this question for me. Who is one of your heroes right now?
Okay.
when it comes to being, in the game that you in and what you done seen and, who's really putting up a good fight. So everybody stay locked in and stay tuned in. And when we come back in, you can hear this answer from Justin. And we got Mr. Justin Brooks. He's the director of the California Innocence Project. Y'all stay locked in and stay tuned in. And he is a name that you want to know. All right. We'll be right back. Hey. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee. My main man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. Like I said, we're still waiting on him. He'll be in with us soon. Much love to you, Jeffrey. I know you're out there changing lives like you always do. So right now with us, everybody, we got Mr. Justin Brooks. If you just tuned in, he's the director of the California Innocence Project, a name you want to know. And you definitely want to go look his name up. He's doing a lot of great things. He's helped a lot of great people get out of prison. He's building up a lot of great attorneys who are going to finish doing a great job. But one thing, you know what, Justin, I said, I want to thank you again for being on the show, Justin.
Sure.
But before we went to break, I'd asked you, who is your hero? But hold on. I want to ask you another question first. How many more years will you be doing this? Because I want to know that I'm safe while you're around.
Yeah. I know I couldn't have done it as long as I've been doing it, which is, 25 years I've been doing criminal defense work. But having a new group of law students every year that are all, bright-eyed and ready to go and enthusiastic really picks me up to keep going.
Right.
And the wins are amazing, because when you get one guy out of prison and give them their life back and the impact you see on that with their families and their futures, keep me going. But the losses are really hard, and they start to take a toll. And I got I've one case I've been working on now for 20 years. I've been trying to get this woman out of prison who's innocent. I got another case I've been doing 15 years, and it's tough. It's tough to pick yourself up and keep going when you know you're right. And it's funny when I ask the general public, like when I do a speech, I'll say, "What do you think is harder, representing guilty people or representing innocent people?" And most people will say representing guilty people is harder.
Right.
But for a defense attorney, representing innocent people is harder. Because when your client's guilty, you're just in there trying to do the best you can, with a bad hand. So you're hoping to get them a good sentence. You're hoping to make sure they get a fair trial and all that. But when they're innocent, you can just never give up because, they're innocent.
That's right.
So you have to keep fighting, and the case just never ends until you get them out of prison.
You're right about that. Now, Justin, let me ask you this real quick. Now we just down to 5 minutes, so I got a few questions to ask you, and if you can answer them quick as you can, I appreciate it. But you got a big heart, and I can tell that you take these cases home with you. Is it hard for you to deal in a marriage or your relationship with all of this pressure on your back, with these cases? Because you're dealing with real living lives, and in one slip up, these lives could be over. Does it take a toll on you that way with your relationships?
Yeah, and I think a lot of defense attorneys talk about that it takes a toll on their personal lives. I'm very lucky to have a real supportive family. But I tell you, my youngest just went off to college, and now I'm empty nesting. And it was nice coming home to him at the end of the day and talking about kid stuff and putting this stuff away a little bit. I worry sometimes about my single lawyers that just go home to an empty house and have nothing to think about but their clients in prison. It's tough. I hear you.
And you're doing a great job, and I want to tell you thank you. But real quick, who is one of your heroes right now?
Well, two, just real quick. Paula Scott is a legal services lawyer in D.C., and when I was in law school, I went to work with her. And before that, I thought I wanted to be a corporate lawyer and go off and do business law. And I just saw this young woman just changing people's lives, just quietly in D.C., getting people their housing, getting them their benefits. And I thought that's the kind of lawyer I want to be, who can, use this power of a lawyer to help people. And then another guy, Rick Rowe, who's a professor at Georgetown Law School, him and I started a prison program together teaching inmates how to teach their children how to read. And he really just changed my life in terms of getting me in the prisons and seeing what we could do to help these guys.
Wow.
They're both huge influences on me when I was a young lawyer.
I hear you. Well, do you think we can do this, Justin, both of your heroes? You think you can contact them and let's get them on our show and let's celebrate them and let them really get their work out there and, let's finish, to helping them do great things?
I would love to do that.
Okay. All right. All right. And any way I can help you, I just want you to know, me and my team, Jay, we one phone call away. And if you want to come through once a month, however you want to do it, and highlight some cases and put us up on some cases, I'm willing to work with you. I really am.
That's awesome. I would love to do that.
Okay. Because like I said, I'm really enjoying, your great work and what you're doing, and, all your young lawyers that you're training right now, and y'all doing a great job. But real quick, we down to 2 minutes. Do you want to give all the information where your website where people can look you up, see what you're doing, and the great things, that y'all are doing as a team, real quick?
Yeah, people should go to CaliforniaInnocenceProject.org to see our website. We also have a Facebook page that they could like, California Innocence Project. And if they want to check out the innocent people we're trying to get clemency for, they should go to innocencemarch.com and sign the petition asking Governor Brown to let these innocent Californians go free.
Okay. All right. So your words of wisdom, Justin. I know you got a lot of words of wisdom, just not enough time.
Well, my word of wisdom to everybody out there, and I tell my students this every day, is just find something you're passionate about in life and do it every day, and then it won't feel like work. Okay.
There it is, definitely. Well, like I said, I want to thank you for coming through today. I think it's been a great interview. How's it been for you?
I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. And like I said, I like our chemistry, and I would love for you to come through. Once a month, you can get in touch with me, Jay, my producer, and let me know, hey, I got a high profile case. I want to throw it out there and let people hear it. And, y'all can even give us all the evidence and let us hear, everybody. And then at the end of, the hour, we'll come down to, okay, well, how is this man convicted of this when all trails lead in the opposite direction? I want to do stuff like that. I think if we can do that on the air, that we'll give people like some up and close and personal, information, but bring them in the game with y'all.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
So why don't you go check out that website, innocencemarch.com. There's 12 stories on there. I'd love to come on and talk about them.
Okay, we'll do that. So what I'll do, I'll have, you know what, you can stay on the line right now for a minute, and Jay's going to get on the line with you right after the show, and then y'all can talk about it, and we'll take it from there. All right?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Take care.
All right, we'll be talking to you soon. So everybody, that was Mr. Justin Brooks, director of the California Innocence Project. He's doing a great job, and as y'all can see, he's on fire. He's passionate about what he's doing. Hey, reach out, contact him, send him a letter, and do what you need to do to get your loved ones and friends in a good position to get their case heard. You know what I'm saying? That's why we do this show. We do this show out of love, and we want people to come home. We definitely want a lot of exonerees to come on this show and talk about how they made it through it and what it takes to get home. So stay locked in and stay tuned in, and we'll be right back with our second hour. You're going to get a surprise. Tune back in. We'll be right back.